Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for making the time to be here. My name is Janine Shaka, if you don't know me, and I'm a certified Louise Hay Love Yourself, Heal Your Life workshop leader. And Nancy, who's here, if you can see her there, she also is a certified Louise Hay Love Yourself, Heal Your Life workshop leader herself. And Nancy works with me. So I'm going to just be taking you through a webinar tonight called The Barriers Breaking the Barriers to Self-Love. So this is a huge topic. It might not seem like a big topic, but honestly, a person could study the subject of self-love for days and still have more to learn. So what I'm going to be sharing with you, a lot of it comes directly from Louise Hay. I don't know if everyone knows Louise Hay or not, but Louise Hay is probably the pioneer, the trailblazer, the world's authority on self-love, and she's no longer around. She's passed on now, but she died at about 92 years of age, about 7 or 8 years ago, I think now, and she was raped as a child uh, by the neighbor, and then her stepfather started to do the same thing, and her mother knew about it and didn't actually protect her. So if you can just imagine a young girl of 8. She started being raped at 5, and at 8 years of age, her in her own house, her mother's partner was abusing her, and her mother didn't protect her. So she ran away from home when she was a teenager just to get out of that environment, and she went through a very rough time. And I'm sure you know this, but if maybe I just remind you, people who are born into abusive homes tend to think that that's kind of normal or the way that life is. And if you are abused, it's your only connection to people at that very small childhood age, and that becomes you looking for love. All a child wants is love. And sometimes they get violence, abuse, terrible things. But when they grow up, that's still their connection to love. So what happened to Louise as she grew up, every relationship she was in, she was abused, one after the other, nonstop, until eventually she went through quite a lot of transformation. She started to do self-development. She joined the Science of Mind Church. And when she heard a person say these words, it stopped her in her tracks and changed her life. They said, you create your own reality with your thoughts. And she never for 1 minute thought about that, and she never even knew that. So once she heard that, she thought, if I can create my own reality with my thoughts, well, what kind of thoughts am I thinking? And she realized that her mind really had some seriously negative self-talk, some very limiting beliefs about not being good enough, just not being enough. And so she went full steam into self-development. After many years, she contracted cancer in her 40s. And where did she get cancer? She had vaginal cancer. And if anyone knows what cancer is, back in the early 1920s, it was called the hate disease. Um, then they gave it a name. So if you hold trapped emotion in your body for a very long time, it can manifest itself as cancer. And even doctors say that today. So with her rape in her childhood and her cancer in her 40s, she knew by this stage that she created it with her intense hatred and resentment um, for her parents. And she decided to ask the doctor not to have the surgery to cut parts of the cancer out and to try to work on getting rid of those negative emotions and actually heal her body, because she knew that it was possible with a mind-body connection. So luckily, back in that day, her doctor was willing to work with her. And to cut a long story short, Louise Hay healed herself completely from vaginal cancer. And then she started to help people heal by studying in depth the mind-body connection and the relationship between emotions, trapped emotions, and limiting beliefs and conflicted values, how they create illness in the body. And then she wrote a pamphlet back in that day. It was called Love Your Body. And she gave it out for free. And eventually she made it into a book. And then that was her first book. And she gave it, and then it just spread like wildfire. And then she wrote the book You Can Heal Your Life, which became an international bestseller. She sold over 50 million copies. And most people in the personal development world today know Louise Hay's name. And I don't think there's anyone who's lived on the planet who's done more work in service of people to help them heal their inner child wounds and their bodies, either from physical illness, or even to heal themselves emotionally and mentally and spiritually. So what I'm going to share with you tonight is a little bit out of Louise Hay's work, and just to add some value to you. And this webinar is completely free. I'm not going to be selling you anything, but I am going to offer you at the end, if you'd like to join my 2-day workshop that's coming up in June, and maybe give you some insight as to what we do in the workshop and how it's helped me and other people as well. And just to really educate you on these barriers to self-love. There are 4 of them that are the main ones. There are many, but there are 4 main ones, and they keep showing up in Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life or Heal Your Body. She's got a body dictionary in there, and every single sickness, almost everyone, not every single one, but most of them, the most common ones, and an explanation for what's going on emotionally. So in other words, I'll give you an example. If a person is inflexible, or self-righteous, they might have knee problems or neck problems. If a person feels unsupported, they can have lower back problems, or financial worries, lower back problems as well. If a person can't digest certain emotions that they're feeling all the time, they can get problems with their digestive system. If you've got problems with your lower legs or feet, it's about moving forward. And this is all at a deep subconscious level. I'm not suggesting at all that anyone is creating illness in their body intentionally or consciously. Absolutely not. That's mad. But at a subconscious level, which means below your awareness, sub means below and conscious means aware. Below your awareness, we might be having thoughts in the background or feelings that are going on, and they do over time manifest in the body. And this is not woo-woo stuff. This is now completely scientifically proven. A couple of names I'll throw out there if you want to look this up further is Dr. Joe Dispenza, or Dr. Bruce Lipton, or another lady called Jill Edwards. They all write about the mind-body connection. Emotions manifest into sickness. So sometimes it takes, like Louise, it took her over 35 years for it to manifest. So sometimes it does take that long. It depends on us, how we hold these emotions and the quality of our thoughts. So that's what I'm going to share with you tonight. And as we go along, I'll refer to some notes that I've made here. And, you know, we're talking about healing here. Healing ourselves, healing our bodies. But I have a question for you. Do you want to, if you could, and someone said to you, yes, you could, here's a magic wand, would you want to heal the world? So I just have that question. Because when I ask this question in our workshops or in talks and that, everyone says yes, they want to heal the world. And the world needs healing now more than ever, more than any other time in history. So if you want to heal the world, I know this sounds like a strange thing to say, but the best place to start is if we start working on healing ourselves. So when we look on healing ourselves, it might be one person at a time, but when you heal, everything in your life changes, and all your relationships with all the people in your life changes as well. And all the anger, resentments, the fear we hold, the guilt, all those terrible feelings, when we heal, they go away, or they reduce themselves significantly in our lives. So here's Louise Hay, that's her there, and she says, the more we love ourselves, the less we project our pain onto the world. So there's a saying that says, hurt people hurt people. Hurt people, people who are hurt, they're the ones who hurt people. So anyone who's doing cruel things and violent things, even though we have sometimes judgment about that, the truth is that those people are deeply hurt themselves, and probably from their very, very young childhoods. We don't really know what their childhoods are all the time, but all I can tell you is absolutely as a certain fact is that hurt people hurt people. So when we also, we might not know how much hurt we have, or I didn't know. I must tell you, when I started doing Louise Hay's work, I had blind spot after blind spot after blind spot. I've been immersed in this work for several years now. So has Nancy, and she's also had if you want to just let them know for yourself, Nancy, your first big breakthrough with Louise Hay's work was also a blind spot. It's not something that you say, oh, I know I've got this major trauma, or I know I've got this massive limiting belief, or I know that I've been betraying myself for all these years, or I have a fear of being used and it affects my business and it affects my friendships and it affects my relationships. But that came from something that happened in my childhood. We might not think that way. So when you do this work, you kind of give your subconscious permission to bubble up to the conscious mind what it is that needs to be healed. And the processes are really beautiful. Jamie Lee says, same with first aid. You have to look after yourself before you can look after anyone else. Thank you very much. That is so true. Absolutely. So when we want to heal the world, all I can say is I wish for everybody what I got from my journey of self-healing, because it changed my life in every single aspect. All right. So there tend to be many reasons why people like yourselves come to a webinar like this. I'm not too sure what made you choose to come onto this webinar, but generally they fall into these 4 buckets of 4 core frustrations. Either there's not enough self-care, so you're actually aware that you don't take good care of yourself, that you don't potentially love yourself enough. Maybe you don't sleep early enough. Maybe you're on your phone too much and you actually hurts your eyes or gives you a headache and you waste a lot of time, or you don't exercise, or you don't eat well, or you say yes when you want to say no, or you say no when you want to say yes, but you don't take good care of yourself, or you start on some good regime of some kind and then you sabotage yourself, which is number 3. Another one is a frustration that may be that you triggered in relationships. You just have triggers all the time. That feeling that just suddenly gets you going and your temper goes up from 0 to 100 just like that. And sometimes it happens a lot, sometimes it happens a little. But being triggered is a terrible thing, and it's very difficult in relationships when we get triggered. Another one is we people please, or we continuously seek approval. And when you people please or seek approval, what are you doing? You're doing things that you don't want to do. I must be honest, just to say this is a general statement. It might not apply to everyone, but a general statement is mothers often are massive people pleasers and they put themselves last. They don't do number 1. They don't have enough self-care, and they tend to do everything for everyone. And sometimes they're also seeking approval, or they suffer from terrible guilt. If I don't do this and this and this, I'm not a good mother. So if those are any of yours, maybe just want to type in the chat box if they are or not. But I'll have another question for you to type in the chat box. But I don't know if those core frustrations are something that you can relate to. They're certainly related to me. I had probably all of those, to be honest, before I started doing this work. All of them. Thanks, Kathy. Welcome, Kathy. I didn't greet you earlier. You must have come on once I started. Welcome. Thank you so much. Now, I want you to type Y in the chat box if you agree with this statement. I don't know if you know what an inner child is, or if you ever heard that term before, but type Y in the chat if you agree that we all have an inner child, and this inner child has got some negative self-beliefs, some emotional trauma of some kind. And remember, trauma doesn't have to be this massive thing. It can be a day that the child cries. Maybe the parents left them with the babysitter and they went out for dinner. It was a perfectly safe evening. But in the moment that the parents left and the child cried and wanted to go with, and the parents said, no, you can't come with, in that moment for that child, that's abandonment. It might not be abandonment from an adult's perspective. We know the child's in good care. But from the child's perspective, maybe the child's 12 months old or 18 months old, really small, they feel extreme abandonment in that moment. They feel rejection. When they can't go with the parents, they feel out of control. When they do whatever they can to cry, but they still don't get what they want, they feel helpless and hopeless. That, my friend, is trauma. It might not be trauma from an adult viewpoint, but as children, all of us, every single person has got childhood trauma. So tell me if you agree that you're aware that you still have an inner child today. Meaning, no matter your age, every one of us has an inner child, an inner parent, and an inner adult. And this is still active in our psyche, in our psychology of ourselves, in our wiring of our brains, patterns in our brain neurons. And this inner child can suffer from these traumas. They can still trigger us, or we have terrible doubts or fears that just show up, and they affect us to this day. But they're not from our adult life. They could be, but the majority, I'm saying 95%, this is a true statistic, 95% of all our results, all our limiting beliefs, everything, all our belief systems, our paradigm, 95% comes from 0 to 7 years of age, which is called our imprint phase in psychology. Yes, yes, yes. We've got a few Y's there. Thank you for those who said it. Okay. So the truth is, we all, every one of us, could love ourselves more. Every one of us. Okay. Now, since I left corporate, I used to be in corporate for 20 years. I left corporate in 2015. Since then, I've had the good fortune of helping hundreds of people with my coaching services. I also teach the Silver Method in Australia and Love Yourself, Heal Your Life workshops and other trainings as well. And during that time, I've discovered actually that there are four main problems that affect a person's ability to succeed, affect our relationships, affect our money, affect every area of our life, our health. So what's holding you back? Here are these four main problems. And this is the title of tonight's webinar. The barriers to self-love are these four things. Criticism. Now, why I'm mentioning this is, if a person, so let me just talk about these 4 points first. Criticism. So we're either criticizing other people or we're beating ourselves up over something that we didn't do. But our inner dialogue, our inner critic actually never shuts off. It never shuts up. It never keeps quiet. Resentment can be that there might be something that happened in our life and we just can't get past it. And it keeps on triggering negative emotions inside us. Fear. Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, which is, in my view, one of the best personal development books in the world. I teach it as a mastermind every year, and I have for many years. I know the book very well, read it many, many times. Napoleon Hill says that fear is the major cause of failure. Let that sink in. Fear is the major cause for failure. And fear inhibits success. So it's a very damaging emotion. Guilt. When we feel guilty, we actually feel that we're not worthy. We aren't worthy of receiving any good. We must kind of punish ourselves. So you block your success or your love or your joy or your happiness at a deep subconscious level. Now, what this means for you is, if you're ready to make a decision and take some action, that you're actually willing to learn ways to effectively love yourself, heal your inner child wounds, you could really change every single area of your life. And I can honestly say there's never been a better time in history, especially as we are in the world today, to start working on our self-love and our self-healing. And that's why I think this workshop that Nancy and I do, Love Yourself, Heal Your Life, is so valuable and so needed on the planet today. So here's a message from Louise Hay. It's not very long. I think it's about 3 minutes. You can just listen to. Oh, let me just set the sound. Sorry, I didn't put it on. There we go.
You know, so many people ask me about how to love yourself. How do you love yourself, Louise? Because I talk about it all the time. So I made a list of how to love yourself. And it's even in poster and postcard form now. But number one on that list of how to love yourself is to stop all criticism. Just stop it, now and forevermore. And make a vow to yourself that you're going to do your very best from now on to stop criticizing, number one, you, and then other people. It'll be a lot easier to stop criticizing other people when you stop criticizing yourself. Now, number two on that list is stop scaring yourself. And here we go into fear. How often do you terrorize yourself with your own thoughts? You get into absolute terror, and it's only coming from your thoughts. Nobody out there is doing a thing. Sometimes it's an old family pattern. Sometimes we get new things. How many people here are absolutely in terror of earthquakes? And how often do you do that to yourself? You know, we find so many ways to scare ourselves. I would like people, when you have time, to make a list of your fears. Make a list of your fears. And then give yourself the opportunity to turn each fear into a positive affirmation. Turn each one into something positive. And remember, always you are in charge. You are always in charge. See, one idle thought doesn't make a whole lot of difference. It's like but thoughts are like drops of water. You drop a drop of water on the table here, and it doesn't mean much. But if you keep dropping and keep dropping and keep dropping, you get the table becomes a wash, and then you get a puddle on the floor, and then you can get a little pond and a lake, and finally you can create an ocean. And with our own thoughts, we can drown in a sea of negativity, or we can float on the ocean of life. And it's up to us. The thoughts we think accumulate. And what sort of puddles are you standing in? Or are you up to here? Or are you up to here and trying to paddle? You know, what are you doing to yourself? When we're willing to change our thinking, we can change our experiences. And it doesn't matter if you've got a big puddle of negative thoughts. You know, you can move over here and create a puddle of marvelous positive thoughts. You can make changes, always. So you want to turn those fear thoughts into positive affirmations. Let them work for you.
Okay, that's a message from Louise. So she's got some really good videos on YouTube if you want to watch. So I just want us to remember that our experiences in life always reflect our inner beliefs. So if you're making notes, maybe you want to write it this way. Your beliefs determine your living experience. And a lot of people's beliefs are limiting or negative. You know, beliefs about yourself, maybe your abilities, your health, all kinds of things. But our life is a reflection of our beliefs. So we first create our beliefs, and then we prove them back to ourselves. Like there's a filter in our mind that only lets us see what's a match to our beliefs. But we can change our beliefs. An example would be I was struggling at work many, many years ago, and I kept thinking I'm never going to get this right. When I became aware of that, I just kept telling myself, I am successful. I always have been. I always have been. I always will be. As an affirmation over and over. And I've turned the entire situation around. So when I had the negative belief, I had very negative outcomes. When I turned it to a positive belief, I got positive outcomes. So that's important to note. The other thing to remember is that we always have a choice. Always. So you can empower yourself if you want to, but you got to be willing. Or you can stay stuck in a pattern of being a victim and blame your environment and your upbringing. But the problem with blaming, or the problem with being a victim, is you don't have any power. As long as you're blaming someone, you give all your power away. You know, when Louise Hay, when I first read her book, You Can Heal Your Life, many years ago, many years ago, I'll never forget, it was either in the introduction or the preface of the book or in the first few pages of chapter 1, but right at the very start, she said, if you don't take 100% responsibility for everything in your life, you'll never be able to make it better. You can't fix it. Because as long as you're blaming someone, they're the reason, and you can't change other people. So if you're blaming, you don't have any power. But when we take responsibility for everything in our lives, our motivation to fix our lives and our health and our relationships, whatever it may be, our finances, our relationships, it turns around. So it's not having a victim mentality and remembering we have a choice. We can empower ourselves. And here it comes. It is 100% your responsibility to work on your healing as an adult. It might not be your responsibility, the trauma that you received as a child, but as an adult, it is our responsibility to go and do the healing. So you're in charge now. And it really doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter what your parents did, your siblings, or what people think of you. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is what you think, because you are the one affecting yourself, your body, your emotions, your mind with your thoughts. So I love that. It's a very empowering idea. So you choose your thoughts and you create your own reality. And that at the bottom, that last bullet point there, that's what changed Louise Hay's life. When she heard that the first time, she dived into self-development. And that's why most of her work, Louise, is affirmations, because she says you can choose your thoughts. So when there's a negative thought going on in your head, she says, oh, it's only a thought and a thought can be changed. And she changed her reality. So briefly, my story and why I teach Heal Your Life. Well, I've always been a fan of Louise Hay and always wanted to somehow incorporate it into my personal development and training business. And then the opportunity came up. It was Nancy who actually found the opportunity and brought it, one day to work and said, hey, you can, do Louise Hay's workshops and be certified. So we went and did that. And then when I went to do the actual workshop, I didn't really know what specifically I wanted to work on. I knew that I had some anger and resentment with some family members that I wanted to resolve for many, many years. But when I was there in the workshop, the biggest blind spot was uncovered. It was my greatest fear. And I never even knew I had this as my greatest fear. And my greatest fear is a fear of being used again and again and again. And it affects me in my friendships, in my business dealings. I just get this terrible feeling of panic inside and I react. And it comes from being sexually abused when I was 12, 13, 14, 15. Now, up until the time I did that workshop, which was in 2022, I hadn't told more than 4 people in my whole life that I'd been sexually abused. I just never did. I never could. I couldn't get it out my mouth. But just to show you the power of being in that 2-day workshop, it healed that. It healed it just like that. And it gave me the awareness of this greatest fear that I had. And once I uncovered that and was able to heal that and work on that, it completely changed my life. And I'm not exaggerating. And then from that day, I've done Love Yourself, Heal Your Life 3 times in a year. And now I do it ongoing. And even when I'm facilitating the program in the class, I do most of the exercises myself again. And I just want to tell you, doing it 3 times in a year, it changed every single area of my life, and for the better, but way, way better. So from my own heart, I can't tell you how much I wish every child on this planet and every adult on this planet can actually do this 2-day workshop, because it changes your life. Right, so what is the Love Yourself, Heal Your Life 2-day workshop? Well, it's based on Louise Hay's principles of You Can Heal Your Life, which has been attended by millions across the world. This is the one cover. There's about 5 or 6 covers to her book, but this is one of the most popular ones. And what we do in this very powerful and transformational program is quite a lot, but some of it includes rewriting your negative beliefs from your age 0 to 7. Negative imprints, and you might not even know what they are, but in the workshop, we uncover them, and you'll uncover yours. And it's a very powerful exercise that. We also uncover your unknown limiting beliefs, the ones you're not aware of. Also, experiencing your mind-body connection, whether you've got a health issue or you don't have a health issue, the mind-body connection is an amazing exercise where you really truly become aware that your body is actually talking to you when it's not feeling the best. And we do an exercise where you'll experience it for yourself to actually become aware, or in other words, hear what your body's trying to tell you. And once you learn to do that, you can do it for the rest of your life anytime. We also release your triggers and old patterns. That's from healing. getting rid of trapped emotion like anger or guilt or fear. We also have a wonderful segment of the workshop where you learn to love yourself. And I'm telling you, self-love is the bottom line foundation of every single area of your life. If you want better finances, love yourself more. If you want better health, love yourself more. If you want to reduce weight, love yourself more. If you want to get a better job, love yourself more. If you want better relationships, love yourself more. If you want to be more respected, love yourself more. If your boss irritates you, trust me, love yourself more, he won't irritate you. Even people who trigger you, love yourself more, they won't even trigger you. You'll think that's not possible. These people are whatever. No, it is possible. I've experienced it myself. And relief from trapped emotions. We all have trapped emotions. Anger, guilt, and fear are the main ones. Then we also release a lot of blocks from family dynamics. There is, every single person has got, I don't know, just call it stuff with our parents and our siblings. Even if you grew up in a wonderful, supportive household, we still have stuff. If you grew up in a very difficult and challenging environment, even more so. And you can actually release all of that and come to total inner peace in a very powerful exercise we do in the 2-day workshop on family dynamics. Then we also touch on forgiveness, and some people might not be that willing initially, but as we discuss and explain what forgiveness really is, because forgiveness is not about condoning anyone's bad behavior or anything like that. It's taking that terrible negative emotion of resentment or anger out of you, letting it go so that you can heal. The minute you release resentment, your body heals. There was a lady, I just want to tell this quick story in my workshop, and she doesn't mind me telling you this. She had breast cancer 10 years ago. She had it removed, and then she was in remission for 10 years. She went for a checkup. The cancer came back in her breast. She's one of my Silver Method graduates, so she let me know what her diagnosis was. And then I said to her, please, I'm running a workshop on Love Yourself, Heal Your Life. You must come, because the minute you do that workshop, your body's going to start healing. She said, no, I can't come because that's the exact same week that I've got my appointment at the doctor to determine what treatment I'm going to have, if it's going to be chemo, radiation, surgery, whatever. So I said, please see if you can move that appointment. She said, no, she doesn't think so. She was in my mind the whole time. I couldn't help myself. I called her back. I said, please just call the clinic. Try to move that appointment if you can. Tell them you want to attend this personal development workshop. It's for your health. Please see if you can come, because otherwise you have to wait several months before my next workshop. And if you can go now, you can have already the healing begin even before your treatment. Anyway, she managed to change the appointment. The clinic said no problem. They booked it 2 weeks later. She then flew from Queensland. She did the Heal Your Life workshop for 2 days. She released a huge amount of stuff in that workshop. She really did a lot of inner healing and trapped emotion. Anyway, she went back. 2 weeks later, she went for her appointment to determine what treatment she needs. And they said there was no cancer. Zero. None. Now, this is one story. We have other students of ours, Nancy can attest to that, who've healed themselves. One lady had plantar fasciitis for 3 years. Within 3 hours in the workshop, her pain was gone. And then she called me like 2 weeks later and said, Janine, I've had this for 3 years. It hasn't come back since the workshop. It went away in the workshop when we started doing the particular exercise on mind body healing, and I used the affirmation. So I'm telling you, this work is powerful, guys. It's really very, very powerful. And forgiveness is one of the most powerful healing energies that there is. And then also what we do towards the end of the workshop is you start creating a new life story. You start creating a new future for yourself, almost like creating a vision for yourself in a beautiful way. And it's very powerful, because when you do that exercise, it gets into your subconscious mind. We not only write it, we also visualize it. We then go into feeling it. It's a whole long process, and it's just beautiful, and it just lifts your spirits to a wonderful way to end the whole workshop on a wonderful high note. So here's a testimonial from one of my students. She said this workshop is so much more than the title. It's the door not only to self-love, but to healing generational wounds and trauma. And she said it's worth doing again and again. And the one thing she learned from the course was forgiveness is the first step to self-love. And it's so true. When I heard that the first time, it didn't make any sense to me. I thought, how can forgiveness be a step towards self-love? Well, in my own life, I can tell you, I wasn't willing to forgive someone in my life until I did the self-love work. So if a person's not willing to forgive, it's because you don't love yourself enough. And that sounds like a paradox. Because when you love yourself, you don't want any negative emotion. You don't want any bad health. You don't want any bad financial problems or relationships. And you start to fix everything. And suddenly the willingness to do forgiveness work goes to the roof. And the first time you do forgiveness, if it's something you haven't practiced a lot, the feeling you have is so liberating and so joyous. You then say, well, I want to do more of this. So Louise Hay all started in 1984, and since then, more than 50 million copies of her book has been sold. People who've done her workshops there, there are Oprah Winfrey, Joe, what's her name? J-Lo. There's Olivia Newton-John. There, the two men is Dr. Bruce Lipton on the left, Greg Braden on the right. And the last photo is Dr. Wayne Dyer. He was actually very good friends with Louise Hay. So just share some main points from her philosophy. She says, we are each responsible for all our experiences. Every thought we think is creating our future. The point of power is always in the present moment. What she means is you can change your thoughts now in the present moment about any situation. We must release the past, and we must forgive everyone. We must be willing to begin to learn to love ourselves. Self-approval and self-acceptance are the keys to positive changes. And when we really love ourselves, everything in our lives work. And I just want to also just add to that that self-love, by the way, is not arrogance, okay, or vanity. That's not actually love, that's fear. Self-love is just a healthy self-esteem, self-respect, a whole feeling where you feel good about yourself, full of love and appreciation for who you are. Okay, so let's talk about these 4 barriers to self-love. The first one is criticism. So criticism, we may criticize others. Some people do. I'm not talking about that as much as self-criticism. Self-criticism is the main problem. And I just want to say this. A person cannot actually criticize another person unless you are quite self-critical first. You've got to first be criticizing yourself before you could ever be criticizing someone else. And then, you know, sometimes people's self-criticism would be voiced, but I can tell you the verbal complaints that come out your mouth are paled in comparison to the negative voice inside your head. So only a little bit comes out the mouth. If you criticize yourself out your mouth or anyone else, just be aware that there's a heap, an enormous amount of self-criticism that doesn't come out your mouth, that's in the background in your head. And it can be criticizing ourselves for our appearance, for our career pursuits, success or no, or lack of success, our relationships, and it's continuously going on. So when we learn to stop criticizing ourselves, which is absolutely possible, it doesn't take very long to learn to do, then we have so much more joy in our life, so much more happiness, so much more peace in our lives. And also we are less prone to put other people down when we heal our own self-criticism. Now, just to re-emphasize where it comes from, if you grew up in a family where they criticized you or other people a lot, well, then you're going to grow up being critical. I don't even say it's your fault, really. It's not. It's just the way that you were raised. It's your imprint phase. And you probably would criticize other people and yourself if you grew up with criticism. But you can stop the criticism. Nancy had rheumatoid arthritis when I met her, and that's in the book of Louise Hay, is caused from being very critical of self, critical of others. And Nancy didn't even realize that she had that until she started doing all this work. Anyway, it's a long story. I won't go into too much detail, but Nancy's there. She did heal herself from not only rheumatoid arthritis after 25 years being on chemotherapy for it, called methotrexate, she actually healed herself. She's got 0 rheumatoid factor in her blood for how many years, Nance? You're on mute, by the way.
8 years.
For 8 years now, doing personal development work. And she then got diagnosed with another autoimmune disorder, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's. The doctor told her both these conditions, by the way, are incurable. And I want to say something. They are incurable from the outside, but nothing is incurable from the inside. So when Nancy got the diagnosis of hypothyroidism, she looked it up in the book, in Louise Hay's book. The phrase is, when is it my time? That's what it is. And Nancy's a mother of 4. So she was very much in serving others, putting herself last. And she used to think the thought, when is it my time? And she's admitted that. Is that not right, Nance? Yeah. And also not speaking your truth is in your voice box, the throat chakra, which can be hypothyroidism. Please tell them your diagnosis. You went for bloods. You've even had nodules on your thyroid. Nancy used Louise Hay's work, and she completely healed herself. I don't know what period of time. The first one, she healed herself in 8 months. The second one took how long?
Just over a year.
Over a year of hypothyroidism. And now Nancy's working on healing her lymphatic glands with a bit of blockage here and there. Just want to see what's in the chat box. Oh, sorry, I missed that, Nancy. I can't see the chat. All right. So self-criticism can lead to, I just mentioned it in Nancy's story because rheumatoid arthritis is from criticism, or joint pain from criticism. All right. The next main negative emotion is resentment. Now, I just want to give you a dictionary definition here. It says in the dictionary, resentment is bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. Bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. So look, it's normal to feel upset when we've been wronged. Everyone does. But to continue to rehash the bad situation over and over and ruminate on it in your mind, keep thinking how unfair it was, how wrong it was, telling your story to some people, telling the story to yourself in your head, that ruins your health and ruins your relationships. So ongoing anger becomes resentment. And Louise Hay says, and so does Dr. Bruce Lipton, by the way, that resentment eats away at the body and it's the cause of cancer. As I said, in the 1920s, cancer was called the hate disease. Now, the key to releasing resentment is forgiveness. And Nancy's one best friend also had cancer, did Love Yourself, Heal Your Life 2-day workshop, and admitted openly. The person's actual words were, I'll never forgive that beep, beep. Okay, I won't say the words. So angry with a person in their life, so extremely angry, and got bladder cancer. And just by the way, the bladder, urinary tract infections, anything in that area, literally comes from the term pissed off. You get bladder problems, UTIs, when you're pissed off with someone, particularly someone close. And this friend of Nancy's was her ex-husband. So much resentment. Anyway, came to the 2-day workshop, said she's not willing to forgive him. But as we went through the workshop, by the time we got to day 2, she said, you know what? I'm loving myself more. I want to get rid of this and I want to heal my body and I'm going to do whatever it takes. And she did it, and her cancer went away from doing Heal Your Life. She did have it cut out. It came back. Just explain the story, Nance, just briefly.
And she went into surgery and a couple of days before the workshop, and then did all the work, did all the after work as well. She did a lot of healing, one-on-one work with me. And 6 months later, when she went to have a checkup to see how things are going, the doctor said, you're in remission. So she's been in remission now for over a year and a half, and it hasn't come back.
Absolutely fantastic. Okay. So just to also say this, in Louise Hay's book, she says those who develop cancer often experience something in childhood that destroyed their sense of trust and made it difficult to develop and maintain long-term meaningful relationships. These individuals also have a tendency to feel hopeless and helpless and to be highly self-critical. A big key to healing cancer is for a person to release their resentment towards the past and those who hurt them, and to learn to love and accept themselves. She says, I realize that this may be difficult to take in and accept, but she says, take what you like and leave the rest. If the idea that cancer is caused by resentment seems impossible or implausible to you, perhaps this is a concept from Louise Hay that you can choose to leave out. However, resentment can and does a lot of damage to those who harbor it, and we can all benefit tremendously from releasing any resentment that we hold, particularly resentment of a deep and long-standing nature. So instead of thinking about dissolving cancer by releasing resentment, why not consider the increased sense of well-being or lightheartedness, which could also be gained by letting go of a grudge that you may be holding on to. All right. The next major emotion is fear. And if you may agree with me, but fear is kind of created or rampant on the planet at the moment. Just put on a news broadcast. I, by the way, do not listen to any news. I do not read any newspapers. Call me ignorant. I'm okay with that. But the news is so negative and so fear-provoking that it's not healthy to listen to it. And I even realized during COVID, if I was listening to updates, I was really feeling depressed. And I just said one day, I'm going to stop. I don't want to hear another thing. And I stopped. And I used to meditate more. I used to do positive things or read positive books and exercise. And I felt completely different in 2 days. Completely different. So fear is a very, very damaging and negative emotion. And it's too much everywhere in the world today. Wherever we look, wherever we talk to someone, they're telling us some bad news that gives us a sense of fear. Now, this might sound interesting or fascinating to you, but they say that fear, what is fear? Fear is a lack of trust in ourselves. And if you think about that, it makes sense, because if you don't trust yourself in making money, you have a fear of not having enough money. If you don't trust yourself in getting something right, then you have a fear of doing that thing. So fear is a lack of trusting ourselves. And because of this, we may not trust life. So we don't trust that we've been taken care of at a higher level, or we sometimes feel that we must be in control of everything in our physical lives. Well, obviously we're going to feel fear because we can't control every single thing in our lives. So trust is what we learn when we want to overcome our fears, or faith. And a wonderful thing is to start to have more trust and connection with God, a higher power, universal source energy, whatever term you use. But remember, when you have an awareness of that power and your connection to that power in your own life, it gives you a great sense of faith and really does eliminate a huge amount of fear. So that is one way that we can help ourselves there. And also, the more you know how to love yourself, the more you begin to trust yourself, and the more life supports you, things get better, and things you thought you couldn't do, you begin to believe in yourself more and are able to do. Fear also limits our minds. So when you have terrible fear, you don't even have blood flowing to the prefrontal cortex of your brain. You only got limited thinking. So you're not even very good at solving your problems when you have fear. That's why it's so important to learn how to manage it. And anger is actually a defense mechanism against fear. There's a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. I just want to read what she says here. She says, if everybody feels fear when approaching something totally new in life, yet so many others out there are actually doing it despite the fear, then we must conclude that fear is not the problem. The real issue is how we hold the fear. And that, my friends, is your thought. So when we learn how to, with affirmations and work like Louise Hay's work, we can start to, with choice, manage what we think, manage our thoughts, and obviously, of course, manage our fear. The next emotion is guilt. This is a terrible emotion and a terribly wasted emotion, terrible waste of energy. Now, guilt makes you feel wrong. It doesn't make anyone feel better. and guilt can't change a situation. So when we're feeling guilt, we're doing this terrible thing to ourselves, but we're not changing anything. We're not fixing anything. So that's why it's called a useless emotion. Now, if you've done all you can in your life to fix something that you've maybe done wrong, then you might need to let the guilt go. There's also two kinds of guilt, by the way. There's true guilt when you did something wrong, and there's also false guilt. False guilt is what many people suffer from. You're not actually doing anything wrong. You're feeling guilty because perhaps you're a people pleaser, or you think you're not a good parent if you don't do these things, and then we suffer from guilt. So guilt causes us to ruminate and bring us down, and Louise Hay has it in her book as one of the main emotions that cause illness. So she says, once we begin to make peace with ourselves on the inner level, doing the inside work, life seems to flow much more pleasantly. Here's a photo actually from one of our Healing Life workshops, and it says, this person, that they gained a lot of clarity, and they felt safe and accepted. It was a very gentle, safe space, felt very connected, and the person realized they were holding themselves back with their limiting beliefs, and now they're grateful for being shown this lesson, and also how to, and now of doing forgiveness work. So the antidote to the 4 barriers to self-love is really love. It's loving yourself first. It's being willing to let go of the past, like really let go. And that's choice. And when we do that, we start really making huge progress. Just the willingness starts to make progress. And number 3, being willing to forgive. Now, there's a saying, if you don't heal what hurt you, you will bleed on people who didn't cut you. So I just want to admit that, when we don't heal our wounds inside ourselves, we tend to bleed on others. We react. We, shout out at people, lose our temper. We get triggered a lot. We might say things that we regret. And we have all these reactions because we ourselves aren't healed. And this is a terrible thing with parents and children, because unhealed parents seriously should not have children, because all their inner child wounds, they just hurt their children with those wounds, and they create damage on their own children. Then they become adults. Now they got unhealed wounds. If they don't heal themselves and they have kids, it just perpetuates, and that's what's generational trauma. That's what it actually means. So when you heal yourself, if you are the person in your family that makes a decision and takes the action to heal yourself, you're a huge blessing, because you're breaking generational trauma. Here are just some photos from our Healing Life workshops. They're really a beautiful space that we create very intentionally, Nancy and I. They're highly confidential. They're full of unconditional love and non-judgmental awareness. So it's really a very strict rule that you may have awareness for how you're feeling, or negative thoughts, or whatever it may be, but non-judgmental awareness. So we don't judge ourselves. We just become aware, and we don't judge others. No matter what's happening, we just become aware. And that space of pure unconditional love, I'm just telling you this truly, is one of the main reasons people heal in this workshop. Some people even start releasing without even the workshop beginning. They feel the energy in the room. It's one of true love. So we're here not to pity anyone. We're not having that energy. No, we're here to hold love for everyone, and to be seen, to be heard, without anyone trying to tell you that you're wrong or make excuses or anything. Just to hear you out and to witness you is one of the most healing experiences of your life. So also remember, during the 2-day workshop, you don't have to say anything you don't want to say, or reveal anything you don't want to reveal. But whatever you do experience is right for you, and is different for every single person, but is highly transformational and very powerful. I just can't see my own screen here. So Berenice said, so gentle and powerful, and delivered with exceptional love. Janine provided a beautiful, safe space for transformation and growth, and the exercises were very powerful. Many attendees have repeated the program twice. Yes, many have done it twice. and some have done it up to 4 times. There's a lady who did it every time we had a class she attended, like one after the other. She's done it at least 4 or 5 times now. This person is a completely different person. They were so tense before, with pain in their face. You could see as if they had a difficult life. The person looks like 5 years younger, is glowing, is happy, is smiling. And if you ask them how they just feel elated and wonderful, because all that trapped emotion has been released and has been healed. So what's next? Well, be willing to work through your barriers so that you don't bleed on those that you love. Heal in an heal in an environment of unconditional love and non-judgmental awareness. Be seen, heard, and witnessed. And the Love Yourself, Heal Your Life 2-day workshop, certified by Louise Hay, is just that. You have another option if you don't want to do the 2-day workshop. There's a 10-week coaching program on Love Yourself, Heal Your Life, where you go through not exactly the same exercises, but many of them are similar and different. But they're all about loving yourself and healing. So just to imagine the possibilities. Instead of feeling stuck or triggered or angry and not knowing why, which can lead to frustration and confusion in your life, you get to attend a 2-day powerful transformational workshop in an unconditionally loving, safe, and not judgmental environment. And what that means for you is, well, you walk away with so much self-love, lightness, awareness, and clarity, and the tools to continue creating your best life. Continue your own healing and continue your self-love, because self-love is an ongoing journey and everyone needs to be working on loving themselves more. I cannot tell you how powerful self-love is. Everything in your life changes. Every single thing. Our students are testimony of that. They had jobs or careers they didn't like. They're now doing something else. And they made that change after so many years. They didn't make the change. When you love yourself, you take care of yourself. Healing their bodies, reducing weight, having better relationships, letting go of stuff that's been holding them in the past, having boundaries. That's another thing. People who don't have boundaries, they get walked on, they get trampled on, they get treated badly. You've got to have firm boundaries. But some people, I was one of them, I couldn't put in boundaries because I never loved myself enough. But once you love yourself, you'll just speak your truth. Not in an angry way, in a gentle way with words of love. But you're clear and you have your boundaries and you don't feel guilty. If you don't want to do something, you just say so. But you don't feel guilty and you don't try and please people. All right, so Heal Your Life, the 2-day workshop, is all about your self-love and healing. It's $997 for the 2-day workshop. There's one coming up if anybody is interested in June on the 5th and the 6th. We do have an early bird. Oh, sorry, I got that wrong. The early bird price ends. Sorry, let me just fix that. Don't know why it's got the wrong thing here. 1 second. It's somewhere now, Nance. May the 16th, I think. 16 May 2025. I went to the website. Let me just put that back on the screen. Apologies, guys. Okay. I think it ends, 16th of May 2025, and it's $749 to do the 2-day workshop. It's in Sydney, in Parramatta, at my office and training center there. And if you're interested, that QR code takes you to the booking page. Otherwise, you can just Google it anytime that you want. Just Google Louise Hay, Heal Your Life, Janine Shaka, my name, it'll come up. So seats are limited. If anyone is interested, what I want to say is I give you my personal guarantee that this program will change your life. It changed mine, it changed Nancy's, and every person who's done it, it's changed their life. So it's not a scary thing to do. It's not something that challenges you or confronts you. It's a very gentle program, beautifully designed and incredibly cleverly designed, that is very transformational and healing in a very, very gentle way. And it's very well structured. And the whole program is the authentic Louise Hay's work. We haven't changed it. We haven't altered it. It's the same workshop that Louise Hay used to teach for many, many years around the world. It's her program. She wrote it, and we facilitate it. So if anyone has any questions, please just go in the chat box or raise your hand and you can unmute your mic. Otherwise, I want to just thank you for the time that you spent here with me this evening, and I hope that you got some value out of it. And anything, if anything resonated with you at all, or
Jay,
yeah,
that the 749 includes your journal, your pens, morning tea, afternoon tea, tea, coffee, full lunch. It's all provided, it's all catered for, so you don't need to bring anything except yourself and an open heart.
yes, thank you for reminding me of that. Absolutely, even your meals, everything is included. Yeah, you just walk in the door and you get gifts. We'll give you some gifts as well, and it's just it's the most beautiful 2 days. It's an act of extreme self-love and an act of extreme self-care if you did attend. And as I said, I give you my personal guarantee that this program will change your life. And I know that people say that a lot and it's like a cliche. And I thought that was a cliche when I heard somebody say that. But when I had that massive breakthrough and it did change my life significantly, I realized, yep, it is true. This program changes your life no matter who you are. It's very, very well designed. So anybody have any questions for me? Otherwise, I'm going to stop the recording. Maybe I'll do that first. And then we're going to take questions.